So, unfortunately, until I get a big name sponsor for this podcast, we have to make do. And unfortunately, our technology sort of gave way on us there. So we're going to turn this into a part two with Chris Sutherby and come back to this conversation around one-to-one coaching. So, Subbers, we were just talking about as I say, the generation of one-to-one coaches that put on sessions. I'd say rather for Instagram than the child. So to summarise that, how do you see that ever changing? For me, obviously, Instagram now is becoming bigger and bigger. For me, I see that as a problem that's going to continue. How do you differentiate from being as I say, because for me, you always have to pick your coach wisely, right? It's not what's good for the gram; it's what's good for your child, right?
I think so. Again, the word COVID's probably been used a million times because I was doing 30, 40, 50 a week during them times. It was nuts. I had someone doing my social media and bought a tripod and bits and pieces, and I was doing video and video and video. I'd send her the video and she'd cut it and she'd put it through this app, and it'd come back and it had pumping music and it looked nuts. And then it got to a stage after COVID where it was like the cost effectiveness of it didn't work. So I started doing my own bits.
Yeah.
It's really easy. I could do a session with you. I could do a session with Bert. I could do a session with anybody. And I think it's really easy to cut. Oh, he's missed out. I cut that bit out. Or he didn't go around the comb properly. Cut that bit out. And then you then find something and then you send it to the client and you go, are you all right with this? And then they cut their own bits and they want to look magnificent.
Yeah.
But I've got no doubt that that's the same with a singing artist that comes out and
sure.
takes that happens. And back in the day, I know F1, is it the two freestylers? You know, back in the day, we used to go down there with a colleague down to the Millennium Dome and they'd be down there the whole day for a 3-minute segment. You know what I mean? And some of them you'd be like, well, it's not going to the top of the top corner. And listen, they're far better than I've ever been. But it is something where you obviously want, if you're going to advertise, you want to be looking like you can deliver a good session because you want people to look at it and go, okay, I want to go on it. But I think it's word of mouth.
I was going to say, is there a fine line between word of mouth and actually selling on what's seen on Instagram? Because I see coaches on Instagram where they seem to be putting on a session and then they run back to the tripod or they run back to get this and they run back to do that. Now, how do you sell yourself as a one-to-one coach without the hype of Instagram?
I think there's a lot of there's the on Facebook. There's a group called Essex Junior Football, and you can post as an anonymous participant.
Right.
And every Saturday or Sunday, you'll get, little Johnny's playing for unnamed club, and he only got 6 minutes of a 50-minute game. Do you think that's fair? Yada yada yada. Or I live in Southend area. Can you give me a one-to-one coach?
Yeah.
And I've had, lucky enough. I've had people like up to 25 people, say 50 people commented, 25 will put me down. And that's through other people. And then other people, there's players that we both know that have got kids and run kids teams. And this week, someone like Potsy, you know Steve Potton, he's recommending, I've got 4 or 5 of his boys that have popped over. It is word of mouth and it is still... You know, you're at Belfairs, you've driven past Belfairs, a lot of traffic goes past there. I'm out by the clubhouse, the little clubhouse where people are stuck in traffic, they see you working, manage to get stickers with Southers football coaching on it. People see you working at the Len Forge Centre in Southend. You're down there, and I'm one of 1 or 2 that are down there. So in that Lee area, the SS9 area, all the Lee kids will probably go to Len Forge. So if you imagine there's sort of 600, 700, 800 kids going there, there's other companies there, but they would branch on group sessions. I can do group sessions and team sessions, but I found a little niche where it's more 1-to-1 or 2-to-1, or I've got a back 4 in I worked with for about 6 weeks. I loved it. And it's the first
Yeah.
time I've worked with a back four.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's. I think I mentioned earlier. Look, there are coaches that will specifically. I've got groups that do finishing sessions. I've got midfielder groups, and they've all got different needs, and you have to try and cater for the needs. But what allows me out, I get a lot of good feedback, and I got feedback last week where a parent sent me a video off their phone of the kids ball coming to their feet, held it up, held the defender off, set someone who scored. Look, you worked on that at the weekend. It's fantastic to see it come out in the game. And I worked for 6-7 sessions for that kid, and then he started to see reward.
So can in this day and age, can you be a one-to-one coach without advertising? Can you, or is it just part and parcel of doing what you do now?
I think there's a lot of industries. I think you got to advertise a little bit. I think putting stuff out there, having a Instagram page, and I don't know how I've managed to do it, a bit of a technophobe, but if I put something on Instagram, it goes on Facebook. And if I put something on Instagram and Facebook, it goes on X.
Yeah.
And then you can put it on WhatsApp, and then your WhatsApp's changed to a business.
Yeah.
So through, on WhatsApp, there's a status. So you can put something on there, and I've got 300 contacts. They all see it through your WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And then you put a video, or you put some good feedback. You get 2 or 3 good feedbacks a week. You put that on your Instagram, and that's the easiest platform for me to upload. But it then goes on your Facebook, and then you're linked into groups like 8 out of 10 mums, and you're linked into things, and you're in groups. I'm not somebody that posts every session every night, and there are people out there that are kind of advertising them all the time, but you
surely it takes away from your actual coaching, right?
I think it's the time-consuming bit. I mean, the bit that I used to do a session, get in at 7 o'clock at night, and then she'd send me something, and she'd say the optimum time of sending it out is between 9:30 and 10:15, because that's when people are sitting in bed.
Yeah, scrolling,
and I didn't even realise, I didn't even think if there was a science behind it, and then you can get others. There's other coaching companies that spend 10 quid a month, 10 quid a week advertising. So when you talk about it, we're talking about it now, the algorithm these people have got, you go on to the social media and it pops up with one-to-one football coaching.
Yep.
So it changes the game. It does help. And I think also the more kind of diverse kids you got, yes, we all want the kid at Arsenal, and yes, we all want the ex-academy player or the pro but I've had 7, 8, 10 Olympian League players that play locally coming in just to tick over during the season. And in my outlook is that keeps me going. And it's a different challenge, because it's not a dad wanting something from a kid. It's an adult wanting to be ready to play at a certain level. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think sometimes one-to-one coaching is probably only looked at as for the elite. I think you've touched on there the different sessions that you put on for different standards. Where do you see yourself? And again, I bring it back to personal experience. So I've never been one to make my kid do football every day. I think at a young age they've got to have a bit of a life, a bit of a childhood to do something away from football. But you do get caught up in that in an academy. You get caught up in that theory that if everyone else is doing it, you should be doing it. And I've kind of, as I say, we've had lots of conversations since I moved down to Leigh 12 years ago, or whatever it was, that I probably was the sort of the different to that. I was not the norm. I didn't have someone coaching Bert on the 2 or 3 nights that he weren't at Orient, for instance.
But we've met at a cricket match, didn't we, a couple of weeks ago, where Bertie played against my other half.
Yeah.
And I think to a certain degree, because Bert and Jack, they've shown an interest in wanting to play cricket, and we've both played different sports. You then get into the realms of, do you know what, if you're serious, you want to give this a go, you've done it and I've done it, and we've gone, do you know what, shall we get you some coaching and help you along?
Yeah.
And we get into that, but I think having spoken to you about it, you wanted Bert to kind of get a bit of an interest in it before investing into that kind of, or show a talent for it or show a love for it. And I know, like Jack's been saying to me, like bowling in the back garden, and although I play, he ain't going to listen to me as much as he listens to someone else. And I think, like I look at it and go, living in a village when I was a kid was brilliant because you could go on bike rides, you could go and play football, cricket, basketball, tennis. Like we had lawn tennis courts in the village. We'd climb under. If my mum's listening, she was the secretary. We obviously used the key, but no, we climbed under and we played tennis. During Wimbledon, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
And I think you were just a little bit of your habitat. Everyone played tennis around that time. The Olympics come up. They're coming up soon now. Everyone wanted to be Linford Christie, or do you know what I mean? And they went and did the 100 metres, or they followed something. And I think it's only natural to try and better yourself, or try and be better at it. I like the fact that Jack, on a personal point of view, doesn't do football. He's gone cricket tonight. He went scooter club. He goes out on a bike ride in the summer holidays, up and down the seafront. He's stopping at every eating establishment in the world.
Yeah.
And we go out on a train, we bike back. He wants to try his hand at everything, table tennis. He wants to have a go at everything. And I think when you...
Do you think that's better for kids? Because again, there's always the argument where in my day they stopped me playing cricket as I come through the academy system. They wanted you to focus on one sport. And that was one of the first questions I asked before my boy went into academy was, is multi-sports encouraged? And it was, but I see as you get older, there's a less reliance upon. So there's more reluctance around those other sports, and they kind of it's more an indirect. Well, football's your main pastime. Do you think that it's good to play multi-sports? Do you think it aids their hand-eye coordination? Do you think at a certain age you should put all your eggs in one basket? Like as a coach that obviously plays various sports, you play cricket, you coach football.
I'm one of those that you give me a golf club, I can't hit a golf ball. Like I'm not a golfer, but I can hit a golf ball. I can hit a tennis ball. I can throw a baseball. I can try. I'm all right at all sports. Probably not a master at any. But I think that hand-eye coordination, so kind of like in answering your question, I think the fear would be if you pushed it too much. It'd break my heart if Jack come back and went, I don't play football anymore.
Yeah.
Because I've pushed him to do it. And I'm a little bit like, don't get me wrong, like he's played a game of cricket and I'm like, mate, good luck. But I end up having to pull myself out of that and go, good luck. I'm not going to leave it any more than good luck. I think if...
Do you feel like it's a bit like what's the Premier Skills Master and None or whatever they say? Do you think if you want to make it in? Do you think if you want to make it in the game, there's a point where you have to kind of put everything else to bed? And
isn't there like something about Gary Neville that Matthew Hayden come over as an overseas player? And they put
both very good cricketers, weren't they? Both the Nevilles.
Put 400 on with Matty Hayden, and it was like Gary Neville. And then I think at that time it was he could earn £16,000 playing for Lancashire.
Yeah.
Or he could earn £75,000 playing for Man United. And I think the perceived reward is phenomenal. I mean, I saw a stat about the guy leading the Tour de France. He gets paid by I think Ineos pay their leading rider $7.5 million a year now. And that's quite, I mean,
better get that BMX back
better
out of the shed then.
I know, the old chopper or the old, whatever it was, what's the one where you spin backwards? But
chopper was the one.
Yeah, I think the reward, the potential reward, and you know as well as I do, there's people playing, I don't know what it's called now, it used to be Ryman North. There's people on 300 quid.
It's people getting 300 quid in the Essex Senior League.
Yeah, and you know, like you look at that Romford side that played at Wembley.
Yeah.
Sammy Deering. He's playing for the love. Like,
Well,
if he is
they're
fair
all
play,
at Saffron Walden now.
yeah. But if he's playing for the love, then fair play to him. But you look at that, but I know, having managed in the Olympian League, Willie Ramblers, like Danny Scopes, a good friend of ours, who's doing unbelievably well at Averley. He said to me, if a player will pay a fiver to come and play for you, you're better off having him, because they're there for the right intentions. And then you kind of fought tooth or nail to get them to play for nothing and get the covers, like get it cost. But the reward for kids, Bertie could go and play Ryman Prem and earn himself a decent wage. Where in cricket, let me tell you, Coley, the top end, Coley, Stokes, they're doing all right.
Yeah.
But to make it, I know some seriously good cricketers that are playing locally, Westcliff and Lee and some other good cricketers, and they're getting paid at that level. They do all right. They get paid, but it's not the same reward or the same exposure.
No, I think, and again, that's another conversation. Bertie's trying to, be good at cricket and improve at cricket, and I had some good conversations with cricketers, ex-county cricketers at the latest camp that he was at, and I think cricket's probably gone down the same route as cricket, as football, right? That if you're going to succeed in an even more technical sport, you need that one-to-one sort of exposure, especially when it comes to batting, right?
You look at that England team now, cricket, and you go, where have they? They've all gone private school. Let's be fair, they've all gone on scholarships. You've got no chance, right? And they've got 15 hours. I remember being lucky enough playing match play at 16, and we went on a tour. And we were 16, and an 11-year-old Alistair Cook walked out to bat and got 150 in a 16-year-old game. Like, but go back to the football side of that, and then you look at that England team. Pickford was League One at the time with Sunderland Academy. John Stones was at Barnsley, Sheffield United. They're not making it at their groundings are at lower teams.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a different conversation, but I think that's again another thing that's changed, where I think under 23 football has stopped a lot of development and people kicking on with their careers, and it's also meant that a lot of players are pretty much the same.
I'm 19 at Malden. I've played in a Capital League game, and we've played Ebbsfleet, and Liam Daish has brought down the full first team.
Yeah.
Charlie McDonald, we've lost 5-0. Charlie McDonald's 5.
Yeah.
And you sat there, and he's come off the pitch, tapped you on the shoulder, and gone, "You've done all right tonight." And you're like, we played a Canvey team. Lee Boland played him. We lost 8-0. He scored all 8.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't think he touched the ball outside the box. Got in the box, he just was destroyed you. But he was scoring goals, and the thing is, when you've got that natural talent, they still practiced. But they practiced Wembley, heads and volleys.
Yeah.
They practiced down the park. We'd get off the school bus and go, let's go down the park, use your bike, take your ball, whatever it may be. They're not doing that now.
Right.
So they're going into Blenheim Park, or locally going to Blenheim, going to Belfast, going to Bonchester. They're going to these different venues, and they're getting that fix. And some people are looking for a one-to-one coach, and they get the session. Some of the parents are doing what the kid wants, and they're backing their kid. Some of the parents will go to every single coach and see which suits them and who they work with. And there's other coaches out there that are, they've got Arsenal badges on their advertising, they've got other badges, and they're getting people in because what they could potentially offer. And do you know what? Fair play to them people if they want to go down that route and they want to use that. I look at someone, and if they've done a block of 5 sessions, after them 5 sessions, I'd like to think that they're better at what they asked me to do with a kid. And, excuse me, they're able to come back and go, we've seen a progression in what we ask you to do with the kids, and that's where you get return business. And I'm lucky enough that you get return business. Obviously, you get others that go, I'll do my 5 sessions, and they don't want to do it anymore. And that's the way of the world, isn't it? Kids have fits, and There are some people that will just do football sessions just during the season. So the last game of the season, they go, see you in September. There's others that just do close season stuff.
Yeah.
And you know what? If someone wants to just work on fitness, I can help them with fitness. I can help them, and football fitness and doing stuff. And if others want to work technically and do stuff, and it's no session's the same. Days like today, it's now a little bit later and a little bit cooler, but days like today, you're not going to be out in the midday sun unless you're mad doing them, because you get no quality out of it, because the 3Gs are melting and they're boiling. But it's tough at times. It is genuinely tough because there's so many people offering it. But you get friends. Oh, do you mind if my mate comes? And then he then does his own session, and it works. It works across the board.
There's another question there with the sort of, I'd say, boom as well over the last 10, 15 years of 3Gs, 4Gs, whatever they're called now. Is it hard to replicate that session or put sessions on when in reality they play over some park that's ankle height in grass and not a perfect surface? How do you?
I've seen.
What is it? Fundamentals you're trying to get right, or what?
I've got a kid that on a 3G, as I punch the ball into him as a mannequin, and he's looking to create angles off of a mannequin and then give me it back and then find space. And I've got a kid that in simulated sessions, I look at him and I think, how are you not playing higher? You look a proper player. And then he comes with his granddad. And his granddad turns around and goes, you give him the ball when he checks off of that space. The players at that level don't give him the ball at that. And then I'm kind of saying back to him and going, well, it's a fine line between telling the kid that what standard he's playing with his mates, and then he should be playing higher because he can access it. It's a tough gig, that. But in that session, or there's someone I want to improve my long range passing, and they've got a session with 16 players in one of the courts at goals. I mean, don't get me wrong, the courts at goals are good and they serve a purpose and they're brilliant. You can't do your long range passing.
No.
And then it's, I'm with my stuff. There's a goalkeeping academy locally, PL1. Liam Paul, good friends with them. I share pitch space with him, so we interlink. There's a goalie that wants to work on crossing, and I've got a winger. We can do both. There's a forward that wants to work in the box. We can share stuff. So it creates realism with them sessions. But when you
touching on that, then, is that bringing it back to making it as realistic as possible? Because I say, if a kid looks $1 million in an unopposed player, then he's not looking like that on a Sunday.
The boys that do play at that high level, they can create in the tempo they play with their attitude. They can create them working at that tempo. You get some that look fantastic for 10 minutes and then drop the standards and then they get bored easy. But then you could argue that we've watched enough games at different levels where you see someone and, when the sun's out and it's a nice pitch, they look $1 million. And then when it's raining, they've got their hands pulled up and they collars all over and they don't fancy it. The realism in a session is something you try and create, and you try and encourage them playing at match tempo and you try and create it. But then I had a kid last summer, the mum rang me up and he's gone to a local school. He's never played football before at 11 years old. And I think there'd be lots of coaches that might have wanted to swerve that because it doesn't look good on Instagram and it doesn't look good on. But I took it and went, gone in. And then we had 20 sessions and he got into the D team of his school and he was buzzing.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a few things there. That one, it's great to hear that people at all levels these days want to improve, that they've got access to that. I think that's probably one of the massive advantages now that everyone's got access to extra coaching. But I think for success wise, one of the things you touched on is something that I'm always been keen on, and me and Bertie have spoken about this on a million car trips, that you've got to train at the tempo that you want to play at, right? Because there's no point doing something in the back garden at 3 mile an hour if you go and play Roman North that's maybe 100 mile an hour, or Conference South that's 100 mile an hour. You got to try and replicate a bit of that intensity yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, how many games have we turned up and watched, and we've seen them do a little box, and they're doing a 4v4 in a box, and they're popping it, and me and you have gone, cool, that's decent. And then 15 minutes into the game, you've gone, I've got to go and sit in the top of the stand because I'm getting neck ache here. I can't. And they banged it.
Yeah.
And you think, why they put that on, and then that doesn't relate, right?
Yeah. It's like teams in pre-season all want to play football, and then the first game of the season, and everyone's booming it.
And you see on the X's and oh yeah, we've signed this player, and me and you look at each other and go, he ain't staying there. He's going to play in that friendly and play on that pitch, and then he's going to go elsewhere. But yeah, I think, you know, what is success for that kid that's turned up, getting in the D teams, fantastic. But you could be judgmental and look at him and go, cool, he's not, you know, the best player in the world, but from where he come from to where he finished, and then the football at school finished February, and then they were doing athletics or whatever they did. So the football at the school had a short shelf life. And then they went on to something else, and then the mum stopped and she said, oh, can we carry on doing sessions in the summer? But it gives you a level to work to. So, you know, you talk about success and stuff, and you talk about progression. I also would dread, and I'm not going to knock it, and if anyone at that level wants to come in, if a Premier League player come to me and went, could you do some sessions? Where's the improvement? If that's your indicator, how are you going to improve? You get Declan Rice turn up and wants to work on his screening. You can't in 5 sessions. You put a session on, I've got Declan Rice, but you ain't gonna. I ain't gonna improve him. You know, so you know you got to keep him sharp, and I think sometimes that's the guilt thing when you watch them work. You know, as well as I do, you go and watch England train. You go Orient or Southend, they do an open training session. They do piggy for hours. You know, academy levels, we were encouraging it. The guy at Southend, we were last there, must do 10, 15 minutes of piggy, 4v2s. You try and sell a 4v2 at grassroots level, at any level, they ain't doing it. It's boring. They don't want to do it. And some of these sessions that you see on social media, and you'll see a 4v4 plus 2, and you're thinking, wow, that's decent. And at academy level, it is decent, but at the Southend primary school level, and by the way, we've all played there and it's a good level, you can't do that session for there because they don't get it, or you can't recreate that session. So, you know, there are one-to-one coaches that are going and doing overseas trips, and they're bringing in Orient players and Southend players, and fair play to them, brilliant if they can get it, and they're throwing it over social media and class, right? And I'm not knocking them, but having a young family and doing this in trying to nick a living, I also need to make sure that I cover my bases and get sessions in where I can earn and have that repeat business to a certain degree. So it does become a job. Like you, love football, love it. Get my downtime with my little and 8-month-old, and Jack, the 9-year-old, and yeah, it's a. I'd love to see where it goes in another 10 years. Like, genuinely love to see
where do you think the one-to-one sort of industry will go in the next 10 years?
I think football will probably change into quarters, and I think you're going to start seeing, this is a bold statement, you can start seeing NFL stuff where they're literally bringing in squads and they're going, right, you're off, you're on, not in possession and out of possession, but roll on, roll off at Christian Wheeler, age 14 and a half, roll on, roll off. If you were on the bench, you're fuming, didn't you?
Yeah.
Where now, and I'm not saying Bert's not, but now, oh, yeah, if I don't start, it means I've played the rest of the game when I come on. If I don't start and I'm playing Vets football, I'm fuming, by the way, because I want to start.
Yeah, of course.
I don't want to come off. I don't ever want to come off. But has that changed? I don't know. I think kids change. I think we're all guilty of throwing an iPad and keeping them pacified, and we don't want them challenging us day, noon and night. But then where's the want for anything? Where do they want and where do they dream? Do you know?
Do you think we ever get back to that where kids are playing out, or do you think that, and maybe your roles are more redundant, or do you never see society going back to that where kids can go and play down the park and get their football fix?
I'm not saying right now, but if you went out on maybe not today, schools are broke up, but if you went out on 6 weeks ago, went out at 3:00 and you drove around and you looked in the parks, how many goals are up? There ain't.
Yeah.
How many kids are playing? They ain't.
Yeah.
And parents want, and quite rightly so, by the way, and I get it, parents want a coach with CRB check, and they want this, and they want it in a safe environment, and they want this, and I get that, but what's the consequence? You know, like, I'm not trying to get too deep with it, but what is the consequence? There has to be a consequence of that. Are we getting enough social activity? Are we getting, like 5 in and you've missed the last 4, you've got to go and goal. I don't want to go and goal.
Old school headers and volleys.
Yeah, like, it's my ball and going home.
Only headers in the 6-yard box.
Yeah. If a keeper catches it, he gets 2, or if it goes, like, whatever.
100%.
You're playing down the park against that 16-year-old and you're 12.
Yeah.
You got to move that quick or you're getting banged. You're getting hit.
Yeah.
You can't put that in there. And I think I saw something might have been Cambridge FA. They're banning any form of, in under 16 football, the dad can't join in training. They don't want it at all. They don't do dad's feelings. And in isolation, I loved it.
Yeah.
I want to play against my dad. I remember my dad dumping me, look, my backside. God. But in isolation, I think at times it works. In a one-to-one, I can go in there and demo.
Yeah.
In a group session, I can go in there and demo, but I can't join in. Where I'd say to you, could you just sit in there in that 6'6", and could you talk through with Bert what you see and give your experience? Because they can't buy that.
Yeah. I just think, again, I don't know who makes these changes at the FA, but I'd need to go away and look at it, but that don't seem to make any sense whatsoever. So where do you see yourself in a couple of years? Is it something that you want to go back into maybe full-time football in the academy space? Do you want to keep growing the one-to-one space? Do you want to do a bit of both? Where do you see yourself in a couple of years?
When you see like a manager get the sack and then he goes in somewhere else, and then like you just mentioned Saffron Walden, that's Romford. Yeah, they're in a different kit.
Yeah,
and they follow the manager.
Yeah,
I think you're a long time out of it. I think you are a long time out of it, and the last year or so, I've gone back to playing a little bit of vets football and done bits and pieces. If the opportunity arises, I'd love the opportunity to go back in somewhere and do something. But I think they're bringing in specialised coaches. You saw Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank with England, he come in as a striking coach.
Yeah.
You've seen before where they've brought in Tony Adams went in somewhere as a defensive coordinator. They're bringing in a little bit, again, like NFL, they're bringing in special teams.
Well, Liverpool had a throwing coach, didn't they?
Throwing coach, set plays. They're bringing in fitness. They're bringing in different phase coaches, I think they're called. So, yeah, I mean, there are niches in the market. I remember watching, when I was at Colchester, I remember watching a coach called Joe Dunn. The boys that weren't in the first team squad, and he put about 8 mannequins out there and did a shadow play thing. Best session I've ever seen, genuinely. Yeah. It was unbelievable. Tempo was unbelievable. And the boys were hungry, and they popped it and they moved it and this, that and the other, and that was fantastic. But you put it on social media and, watch a lot of these striker coaches. I think the knock-on effect is when you start seeing non-league clubs have 7, 8, 9 staff.
Yeah.
And they're, where my experience was, we had a manager, an assistant manager, a physio. Yeah. You might have brought an army guy in to do some running with you. Yeah. I'd like to develop more, but I just think the evolution of everything is, if you'd have said to me 3 years ago, I'd have been where I am now and continued doing the stuff I'm doing, I'd have been shocked. You know, is it the best thing in the world in the middle of December when it's smashing down with rain? I love it. I love it. And did I love it today? Yeah, I do. It's a fantastic job. And when you get them messages of, oh, Jimmy or Billy or whoever's done well, it's a fantastic job to be in, and it works. So there's definitely a niche in the market, but I think that niche is going to get more unique.
Yeah.
More unique, and with some of the guidelines they're bringing in with the grassroots stuff, you know, the non-deliberate heading, it's going to be non-contact soon.
Well, I hope not. But what would you say as we try and close this out? What would you say as your sort of best bit of advice for parents that want to improve their children away from maybe team training sessions?
Know what you're good at. I think we've spoke about it. If the 43-year-old Chris Sutherby could have a conversation with the 17-year-old one at Malden Town, was, I'm better than header and volleying.
Yeah.
I was good at header and volleying.
Yeah.
And that's all I had, and that's all I was good at.
Yeah.
And going back and playing vets, they're going, oh, you're good at your good header and volley, and it's like a niche in the market. And know what you're good at. If you've got a superpower, strength, you're great at 1v1s, or you can finish, be the best you can be at doing what you're really, really good at. Yeah, be competent with your weaknesses. Make yourself better on your weaknesses, but don't become a 7 out of 10 in everything. Make sure there's a 9 out of 10 in a facet of your game. Have a superpower.
Would that be if you was a 9 out of 10, even if one of your other attributes was a 1 out of 10, or?
Depends on your position, perhaps. I mean, you could be cruel to say that, you know, you look in the Premier League and you go, they're all athletes. They can all run 20k. Do you know what I mean? They can all do these things. They're all athletes. You go back 25 years ago and you know that old picture of Jan Mulby, and they laugh. And we used to do it after Christmas. You've had a good Christmas.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Get the bin bag on.
Yeah, get the bin bag on and work hard. I think kids are athletes, but I look at them and think, because of the control that the manager wants, because they're scared of getting sacked, and it's easy to get sacked, and it's easy to change in all facets of football. But be different. Be different. Be really, really good at what you're really, really good at. And look, if you're playing at Prem League or the Southend District League or the Chelmsford Invitation League or wherever you're playing football, if you're playing in a Prem at 11-a-side football, you can play. You can play the game to a certain level. If you're playing Eastern Junior Alliance at a good level, you can play the game at obviously slightly higher level. You'll be really, really, really good at what you're really, really good at. There's that youth team locally, the Concord Rangers team, that the goalie's gone to Hull.
Yeah.
The centre forward's gone to Dagenham. One of the other centre forwards is playing up front for Chelmsford City, Conference South. It's got 40 games, like first team. And they kept them doing what they're really, really good at. They were really, really good at what they're really, really good at. And I know that sounds like a bit of a weird saying, but if you are Carl Walker and you're the best 1v1 defender around, make sure you enhance that and push yourself to be the best of the best.
So, and then for the kids, without doing yourself out of any business or giving them a grounding before they come to you, what's something that they should be doing every day with a football? As I say, because kids are not dribbling balls to school anymore. And, you know, I look at my kid, he's only allowed to play football once a week in the playground, you know, all this nonsense. So what can they do 5-10 minutes every day to hone their skills? I
know we've had this with Keep Me Uppies, right? I would imagine if you took out Christian Wheeler at 11 and Bertie Wheeler at 11, you could kill him at Keep Me Uppies.
Oh, I still do it now,
yeah. But, you know, could you pass the ball through that gap? You could pass the ball through that gap more than he does because you practice it more. And we're in the back garden and we didn't have, we might have had a Spectrum or
Commodore 64, mate.
Commodore 64 or an Amiga 500. Where we might have had them things, but, you know, the tennis ball with a thing in the background where you whacked it, the spin ball, whatever it was. But we practiced. I would just say, like, if you get 100 touches on the ball a night, Keep Me Uppies, pass it against the wall, turns, if that's what you want to do, You do that 5 times a week. Surely your 500 touches closer to where you want to be.
Love that, mate. So just to close out, they might be different, but give me a quote that you live by. It can be the same one. It can be one for your life, one for football. Give me something. Give me 2 quotes or 1 quote that you live by.
Two big quotes. Like being an Arsenal supporter as well, I think Arteta says, trust the process. Process over outcome. Elaborate that on for 2 seconds. Keep practicing at what you're practicing. Keep believing in what you're doing, because it does turn.
You've got to enjoy the process,
100%. But if your process becomes bigger than your outcome, and you'll only get your outcome if your process is right.
Yeah.
And the other one, and it's a bugbear now of being an 80s kid, practice makes perfect. If I could go in a time machine and change one thing, I'd obviously change lots of things. But practice makes permanent.
Yeah.
Practice and practice and practice and repetition. And if you're doing it in the right manner, you've got to become better at it, because you're spending time at it. And they're the two. They're a little bit old school, but I just think if you look at Harry Kane, you look at how many strikes at goal he hits a week.
Yeah.
All right, he ain't been great in the Euros, but you don't score 50 odd goals in the Bundesliga and become a bad footballer.
Exactly that.
You don't score in a Tottenham side all them goals and become a bad footballer. And he's practiced and practiced and practiced. You look at Lionel Messi, I bet he's practiced more than most, and he's arguably the best ever. So, yeah, practice and just trust what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing.
And then lastly, if I'm a parent in the sort of Leon C, Southend area, how do we get in contact? How do parents reach out to you? What's your Instagram handle, etc.?
Suthers, Suthers, Suthers Football Coaching. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. It's on TikTok. But you can message me on that. I don't even know what that's about. But
God, down with the kids.
Yeah. But yeah, just get in contact. I'm at the Len Forge. Little plug. I'm at the Len Forge in the summer holidays. Most days. Big, tall, 6 foot guy on there working down at the Len Forge Centre 90% of the time. 3G, which is close to David Lloyd and Kent Elms Junction, if you're struggling to see where that is. But yeah, pop down, get involved, come in and have a look and see what we do and see if it works for you.
Suthers, thank you very much, mate. I've really enjoyed that. I think it's, as I say, it's something that's changed massively since I was a kid. One-to-one coaching and kids and adults doing more outside of their group sessions. So really great to talk that over. And I wish you a great weekend.
You too, mate.